when we started shooting, we didn't have enough money to finish it. I didn't know how we were going to find that money. All there was just so much unknown. And I think I have a more core sense of self-trust now that I'm sure will be challenged many times over. But now I know that I can like get through it even when you don't know what's on the other side.
I love this movie so much. I saw it last summer at Walter Reed. I've been hearing such good things about it out of Sundance and new directors, new films in Cannes. And just this past weekend, Alissa Wilkinson of the New York Times named it amongst her top 10 best films of the year. I think it will make my list as well for whatever
Oh.
that's worth. And it's out on VOD the day that this interview goes up, which is December 6th. I would highly encourage everybody to go rent and buy this film as soon as they're done watching this. India, thank you for making it and thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me and for supporting the movie.
Absolutely. I have to start with the typical first question for those who haven't seen Good One. Give us a quick summary of what the film is about.
I'm horrible at this, just putting that
Even
out
after all of this practice,
there.
come on.
It's about a teenage girl who goes on a backpacking trip with her dad and her dad's sort of oldest friend. At the beginning of the movie, it's not a spoiler, it happens in the first like 4 minutes, but the friend's son bails on the trip. So it's supposed to be a foursome, turns into this trio, this teenage girl and these two middle-aged men, and she goes on a journey in more ways than one, and sort of has to contend with the kind of competing egos of these two men and everything that they are reckoning with in their own lives.
Well done, well done.
Thank
You've
you.
said you've okay, so I've read some interviews with you about this film, and you've said previously that you were looking at one of my favorite movies, which is Kelly Reichardt's Old Joy. Immediately upon seeing stills of this movie, I was like, Old Joy, it seems like, and sure enough, it sort of delivered on that in a totally different way. What are some other influences that you had, both films and personal experiences, that sparked the creation of this film?
I had been trying to make a different movie for a long time, what felt like an eternity. And during the pandemic, those early days of the pandemic, it just seemed like that much harder to make an independent film. So much was unknown, but that kind of converged with this feeling I was having, this kind of urgency I felt to make a film. And so I sort of pivoted and wrote something new that was really designed to be made and made in a way that could be intimate and small, which is not a word I like using to describe the movie, but in practical ways it was small. We also wanted to be kind of ambitious visually and emotionally about the type of story we were telling. So, I grew up going on trips like this with my dad, and I think there's something about, similar to like a road trip, but a camping trip where you're sort of outside of your normal environment and all of these kind of unpredictable elements are thrown into the mix. And I think that influences behavior in interesting ways. I think there's so many parallels between like the making of the film and the story itself. Like it's unpredictable to shoot a movie in the woods too, but I think in ways that enhanced the story.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Like, actually, I don't think I've spoken about this before, but I I remember being, probably 10 years before I made this, or even more, 15 years. I I remember looking at filmmakers who are like around my age who were making movies in a really um like lean way. Like some of them, are my friends, like Sophia Takal and, other people like how Lena Dunham made Tiny Furniture, the Safdies, people who it's like, oh wow, they're going out and figuring out a way to do it. And it took me a while to get there because I didn't come to it until I was like in my 30s. And it took me some time to build up my like stable of collaborators, and I think that's such a huge part of making a movie in that way. Like you really rely so much on the kind of generosity and creativity of your friends and collaborators. So, or I certainly did. So yeah, I mean, all of that is to say, I think I was thinking about like production and how it could how it could happen.
Mhm.
And rather than, waiting around for
Yes.
years for it not to happen.
I love Always Shine, and I love Ramin Barani, and like,
Hmm.
Sean Baker, and like all of those
Absolutely.
examples are shining examples of people who just grabbed the camera and made it. And it blows my mind
Absolutely.
that more filmmakers, like when gear has never been more readily available, it's literally in your
Absolutely.
pocket. It's really strange that more of that stuff, that kind of early 2000s mumblecore-ish stuff, or whatever the equivalent of today would be, more of that isn't happening. It's just like baffling to me.
100%. Yeah. Another filmmaker I'll call out is Pete O's, who like I don't he just it's like his approach is just like there's no excuses. He's gonna make it.
And you mentioned nature and you mentioned collaborators. So I have to ask, because that's such a fun thing about making a movie in nature. You're inviting nature to be a collaborator with you in many ways, good and bad. And I'm curious, like in the production, what were some of the highs and lows of that relationship?
Mostly I just have like maybe this is just how my memory works. I had such a like incredible time shooting the film. It was so fun that I remember all the highlights, and when I watch the movie, I see all the ways, all the unexpected like things that I think for me like make the movie that I couldn't have written. Um, like there's some we built these rock towers that have a feature prominently in the movie, and these butterflies, blue butterflies, were just like attracted to them. This one shot of these two butterflies that we captured, all the weather, like our aim was just to keep shooting no matter what, if it was like possible for us to be outside. When you're lightning storm, we had to stop. Like it's not safe to be outside with all that gear, but and for the crew, but if it was raining, we were shooting and kind of writing it into the story and figuring out how to make it work.
I want to go back to the script for a second because from what I understand, you were writing the script, the first initial drafts of it, and then at some point you became a parent yourself during the production of during the writing of it. And I'm curious to know how that life change might have changed the trajectory of the film or your understanding of the characters.
It gave me a greater sense of empathy towards the two parent characters I had written. I think, I always had that on some level. Like I wasn't interested in writing sort of one-dimensional or like villainous men. I enjoyed writing them. I have a lot of, yeah, empathy and appreciation for them, especially when these two actors breathe life into them. I think with filmmaking and with parenting, like, and storytelling in general, it's like you can't control how, you can have all the intentions that you have in going into making something, and then you can't control how people feel about it, how it makes them feel, because everyone brings their own personal experience to it. And I think having this like person who who I am responsible for, but who is not me, who is outside of me, and who I'm, it's sort of like sun and movie. There's some like parallels there, but I think, yeah, just patience, so many things, but patience, gratitude for all the people that helped me make a movie and also parent at the same time. Like both are so demanding, and then it was always seems mysterious to me that how people are able to do it. I still, every time I meet a parent who is a filmmaker, I'm like, how do you do it? What's the secret? But anyway, yeah, lots of things. It changed the story, changed my life, all of
Yeah,
it.
of course.
Yeah.
Were the actors in your mind while writing the parts, or when did they come into the fold? Was the script fully realized and then you did a formal casting? How did that work?
Yeah, the script was fully realized. I did not have Lily in mind because I did not know her yet. Once I met her, I felt like, okay, I understand how this movie can exist now, because the whole thing sort of rests on her shoulders and her performance, in my opinion. The two the two guys, I was huge fans of theirs before. Danny McCarthy, I'd first seen him in an Annie Baker play and written his name down afterward. His performance in this play was just so like funny and heartbreaking and specific. He's a very special actor. James LeGros, I've been like a fan of forever. I could name so many of his performances. He's just one of these actors that every time he's on screen, I like lean in and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Like even if it's, one scene.
A thing that I love about this film, and a lot of people have pointed out, is just how the shorthand that the characters have and the depth of their relationships that you create on screen, not only between father and daughter, between the friends. Like I love just like the bickering, you just feel the history there. And you put in these scenes, which I think are beautiful, which is something you just never see anymore, which is one of the things I think is that's so special about this film. You cut away to them at the bar and they're just trying to recall the days of the week in Spain. And you're like, like what exactly is gained by this scene? Like nothing and everything, right? So like my question to you is, was that a part of like a larger piece, or did you know exactly what that was going to be and just shoot that part? Like how do you approach a scene like that?
Um, Thanks for asking about that moment. I love that moment. And in part because it's like one of the few moments in the movie that was improvised. And I knew I wanted to cut away to them while she was, going to bed, but I hadn't written anything. I think in the script, the way it played, it was sort of like the like architecture of the space was different in my head. Like in my mind, it was one of those like single story motels, and she could hear them outside. Um,
Mhm.
and so it was sort of played in the script like this kind of off screen, like almost inaudible banter. And then the space one, it's like once you have a location, it kind of changes the way you tell the story. And I really loved the the bar at this restaurant we were shooting. And basically, we just rolled the camera, and then Lily and I, and maybe Graham, who's the producers on the movie, I think just like gave them prompts of things to talk about. And I think the best things were things that they just came up with. And the days of the week in Spanish, I have no idea where it originated, but in all the sort of long take of footage we have, Graham, who produced and also edited the movie, that would just like always cracked us up. It was like just so dumb, so dumb. And there was a lot of funny stuff, but we're like, we you just can't beat how dumb this is. And just felt like the perfect, yeah, little like just two men who have nothing to talk about ultimately.
Another incredible feat of this movie, I think, is the way that you play so much of the dialogue off of the listener. And in this case, it's Sam, it's Lily. And I wonder, I'm someone who works with a lot of young actors at NYU, and it strikes me as probably a very interesting challenge to convey your desires for scenes like that to an actor.
Mhm.
um, I'm curious about your process of directing her through those scenes where it's like these really important moments need to be clocked, but they're barely perceptible, and they'd be difficult, I think, to articulate exactly
Mhm.
what needs to transpire. How did you approach those?
I think there were some clues in the stage directions.
Hmm.
And I think it was in the script, and I made like a visual deck that sort of described how the movie would visually play. And she knew that that was sort of where the performance was, that it wasn't always in what was being said, it was in her experience of
Hmm.
it. And we would do these long takes like, we would do just maybe one or two takes of the guys having a conversation and then record the entire, film the entire conversation on her, even when she says nothing.
Hmm.
Um, and so I think our shooting style, she knew that like, I mean, like, I think with any actor, it's just about, not just about, I'm not an actor, so I don't,
Yeah.
but, it's about being present and listening in the moment. And, um, her audition, there was so much detail in her performance that kind of made the Sam's like emotional experience just pop, and it was so subtle.
Mm.
And I think that was where she really compelled us in her audition, like just how much um, of her experience, how much nuance came through in her performance outside of the words she was saying.
You made this movie in 12 days. Is that right? 12,
Yeah.
12 days.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Thank you.
From the moment that you started this project to this very moment right now, what surprising ways have you changed as a filmmaker?
I think this is something I could only, see with hindsight of making it and finishing the movie and seeing how people feel about it. But I think I trust myself in more concrete ways. I really relied on my collaborators to like get me through the experience emotionally. um, to tell me sometimes when I was doubting myself that it was good or that it was like, worthwhile. Because I think it's just like going into this abyss. You've no idea how it's going to go and how it's all going to come together. When we started shooting, we didn't have enough money to finish it. I didn't know how we were going to find that money. There was just so much unknown. And um, I think I have a more kind of like core sense of self-trust now, that I'm sure will be challenged many times over. But now I know that I can like get through it even when you don't know what's on the other side.
What does the future hold? Has the next project come into focus for you?
I'm not quite yet. I'm still kind of like putting Good One to bed for this this year has really been about Good One. And because it's my first movie and we put so much into it, I really wanted to like continue that in terms of the attention I was giving it.
Yeah.
Because I don't think anyone, I'm the best advocate for it too. So um yeah, I'm not quite sure. Speaking of unknown, we'll have to
Mhm.
have to like see. But yeah, trying to find space for writing again and just like uh yeah, trying to create kind of like creative headspace again where I can just like think about something new because that's such
Mhm.
like a specific mindset to be in that I haven't been in for a while.
Right. Well, I mean, you mentioned a project that you've been working on trying to get made for years and years. Has making this movie changed your relationship with that piece? Is that piece still as exciting as it used to be, or have you changed in a way that you're like, maybe I'm someone else now?
I would still like to make it. But I think it will be a different movie than I would have made if I'd made it first. But
Right.
that's interesting to me in a way, like just how I think everything informs the next thing. I am really grateful that Good One was the first movie I made because I got to make the movie I wanted within the confines of like the resources we had. But I think it was like a really incredible gift to be able to just cast who we wanted to cast, and
Hmm.
make the movie we wanted to make.